Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just do a little bit of reading about physical and chemical properties and physical and chemical changes. I'm feeling like we need just a little bit more practice. So, all matter has properties. We recognize a person by his face, voice, height, fingerprints, DNA, and other factors. The more properties identified, the better we know the person. In a similar way, matter has many properties. The two basic types of properties associated with matter are physical and chemical. Physical properties do not change the chemical nature of matter. A physical change occurs in shape, form, or appearance, but no new substance is created. Examples of physical properties include color, odor, hardness, texture, luster, volume, or size, shape, solubility, the ability to dissolve, molecular polarity, and that's whether a molecule has a positive and a negative end, like we've talked about before. Water molecules, the oxygen tends to hog the electrons that it shares with the hydrogens in the water molecule. And so, oxygen end of the molecule gets a slightly negative charge because the electron is negative, and the hydrogen end of the water molecule gets a slight positive charge. Other physical properties are freezing, boiling, and melting points, taste, magnetism, density, salinity, that's like salt content, absorbency, and many others. Solubility and polarity are classified as physical properties because no new substances are produced as a result of testing for these properties. Classification of matter. A substance is more easily identified when many properties have been recognized. Matter is sorted and classified according to its properties. For example, the property of a substance being metal or nonmetal determines part of that substance's classification on the periodic table. Copper is a metallic substance with a shiny reddish color and a density of 89 and 2/10 grams per cubic centimeter. It is non-magnetic and has good electrical conductivity. Properties of water. Properties of water you are familiar with are transparency, like you can see through it, color, melting and freezing temperatures, solubility, and other factors. There are other properties with which you may not be as familiar. When electrons are not shared equally in a molecule, as we talked about a few minutes ago, it is said to be polar. This is the situation with water, H2O. The water molecule is neutral as a whole, that means not charged, but one end tends to be positive, or one pole is positive, and one end or pole tends to be negative. Each end of the water molecule is attracted to the end of another water molecule. See, the negative ends of one water molecule, the oxygen negative ends, are attracted to the hydrogen positive ends of another water molecule. This attraction is what causes molecules to stick together and create surface tension. This is why it hurts so much to do a belly buster off the high diving board. The water molecules will not separate easily to allow you to enter the water. A lot of the energy from your fall is actually transferred back to your body. The sticking together of like atoms or molecules in the above example is called cohesion. The sticking together of unlike atoms or molecules is called adhesion, such as tape sticking to wrapping paper on a package. The two substances are not alike, the tape and the wrapping paper, yet they stick together. That's called adhesion. Physical change. Physical change in matter affects one or more of the physical properties of a substance. This change does not alter or change the nature of the substance. For example, when you tear a piece of paper into tiny pieces, you still have paper. It is in a different shape or form, but it has not changed its chemical composition. Melting butter to add to popcorn at the movies is a physical change in the state or phase of matter for the butter. Other examples of physical change are chopping wood, bending a paper clip, adding ice to tea. Because a physical change does not involve changing the chemical structure of the material, it can usually be changed back easily. If you mold silly putty into a shape, then you decide you want to make it into something different, you simply remold it into something else. The ability to restore something to its original substance is a characteristic of a physical change. So, like reversibility. Some processes that produce a physical change are cutting, grinding, boiling, freezing, melting, condensing, breaking, separating, chopping, splitting, mixing, tearing, crushing, and blending. Okay, now chemical properties. Chemical changes deal with reactions of two or more substances and result in the formation of new material. Chemical properties change the chemical nature of matter. Examples of chemical properties are heat of combustion, reactivity with water or other materials, and pH. Now, remember, whenever you see that word reactivity or react, we're talking about a chemical change and turning into something new. And then pH, remember, is power of the hydrogen, and that tells us how acidic a substance is. For example, copper reacts with nitric acid to produce brown fumes. In the form of a compound, copper chloride in the presence of aluminum will decompose or break down into copper and aluminum chloride. Decomposition of copper with other chemicals is one of its chemical properties. A chemical change occurs when the composition or the makeup of a substance is changed into a new product. Remember, old bonds are broken, atoms rearrange themselves and form something new. Chemical changes usually occur when two or more substances come into contact with each other or when heat is applied. As matter and energy cycle through the environment, atoms and molecules are transformed and recombined in different ways, creating new substances. The new substances have different properties than the original material. For instance, iron rusting, iron and oxygen reacting, or acid fizzing when it comes into contact with limestone, acid and calcium carbonate reacting are examples of chemical changes. Now, we talked about evidence of a chemical change. So, the outcomes or products of a chemical reaction cannot easily be turned back into the original substance. In other words, it's not reversible, it's irreversible. Once paper is burned, it cannot be restored to its original state. Indications of a chemical change are changes in color, and remember, it's usually an unexpected color change, production of a gas, which causes bubbles or fizzing and foaming, production of a solid or precipitate when you mix two chemicals and it becomes cloudy or you get a solid forming, creation of heat, which we call an exothermic reaction, so a change in energy that causes the temperature to go up, or cooling, which is called an endothermic reaction because the heat is actually absorbed by the reaction, but the environment feels cooler, light being given off, and production of odor or a change in odor. Not all chemical reactions show these indications in any easily visible way. And these changes do not necessarily indicate a chemical reaction. So, for example, when you shake up a can of pop and then it fizzes all over the place, just because there's fizzing and foaming does not mean that's a chemical change. That's a physical change. Okay, so these are only visible evidences of activity that allow us to infer or, you know, deduce something based on our observations that a reaction is occurring on a molecular level. Okay, so I want you to be studying over, thinking about this reading. Maybe take notes on it if you still don't feel like you're absorbing or understanding physical chemical change and physical chemical property. And I'm going to give you another worksheet where you try and identify the difference between physical chemical property, physical chemical change. In the worksheet, it is digitally graded, so make sure you follow the directions exactly. Capitalization doesn't matter, but if it tells you to put a P for physical and a C for chemical, do that. Don't write out the word physical and chemical because that will mark it wrong. Also, there's a section where it has you place numbers on the worksheet. Just put the number for the choice that you're choosing. Don't put a dot after the number. That will also be marked incorrectly. All right, good luck.